The shadow fell on a Tuesday. We woke up to a stolen morning. The sun was gone, hidden behind them. They arrived without a sound. No thunderous entry, no warning from our star science posts. They were simply there. Huge, dark shapes hanging in our sky. They were like mountains of black stone. They floated with an impossible silence. Our screens lit up with their images. They were sharp and geometric. Every angle seemed designed for a purpose. They did not look like ships for exploration. They looked like weapons waiting to be used. The silence was the worst part. It stretched across the planet, a held breath shared by billions of people. We waited for a message. We waited for a demand. We waited for a sign of any kind. But for 3 full days, nothing. Just the darkness they brought. Just the quiet dread they inspired. Our own world felt alien under this new sky. We learned to live under their shadow. We tried to find a new kind of normal. Then the message came. It arrived everywhere at once. It spoke in every language we had. The voice was cold, like ice and metal. It had no emotion. It had no personality. It was the sound of a conclusion. It told us our time was over. Our history was a footnote. Our world now belonged to the Cathar Empire. The message was brutally simple. We were to surrender our planet. We were to surrender our governments. We were to surrender our will. Any resistance would be met with total erasure. They did not threaten us with pain. They promised us nothingness, a neat and tidy end to our existence. The transmission ended with a countdown. We had one of our weeks to comply, 7 days to hand over everything we had ever been. The voice stopped. The silence returned, heavier than before. Now it was filled with their words. Their demand echoed in our minds. Surrender or disappear. Our leaders gathered. They met in video calls across the globe. Their faces were grim. They spoke of military options and strategies. They knew it was hopeless. Our best weapons were like toys. Their ships could boil our oceans from orbit. Everyone understood the reality of our position. We were helpless. Then someone laughed. It was an old diplomat from a small nation. She laughed a genuine, warm laugh. The other leaders stared at her in shock. "They must be so lonely," she said, "to travel all that way and be so rude." Her words hung in the digital air. The idea was simple. It was also completely insane. But the idea began to grow. What if they weren't just conquerors? What if they were just bad guests? We had a long history of dealing with those. The conversation shifted. The fear started to recede. It was replaced by something else. It was replaced by a sense of profound hospitality. We decided to welcome them. We would prepare the greatest party in our history. Our panic turned into planning. Committees were formed overnight, not for war, but for festival arrangements. We would show them how we treat visitors, even the ones who threatened to erase us. Our single, unified response was decided. We would meet their silence with song. We would meet their threat with a feast. They fired the first shot on the 4th day. We think it was meant to be a warning. A single beam of crimson light lanced down. It struck the middle of our largest ocean. The water flash-boiled into steam. A pillar of white cloud reached for the sky. It was a terrifying display of power, a clear message of what they could do to our cities. We watched from our shores and on our screens. A collective gasp went around the planet. But it was not a gasp of fear. It was a gasp of wonder. The light was beautiful. The steam cloud was magnificent against the dark sky. Someone on a beach started clapping. Then another. Soon, the applause was global. We had never seen such a spectacular show. We called it their opening fireworks display. People gathered on rooftops that night. They hoped the aliens would do it again. We set up cameras and prepared to record. Children asked if the new friends in the sky would make more pretty lights. We told them we certainly hoped so. Our global networks buzzed with excitement. We shared videos of the ocean strike. Artists created paintings of the red beam. Musicians tried to capture the sound of the blast. We treated it like the arrival of a great comet, a rare and beautiful star-born event. We were genuinely, deeply impressed. We had to make sure our party was just as good. The observer watched from his station. His name was Zelos, of the K, Thar. His duty was to monitor the primitives. He was a third-generation soldier. He knew the patterns of conquest. First, the show of force. Then, the terrified scramble. Then, the inevitable surrender. It was always the same. This time, it was different. Xylos reviewed the planet's data feeds. He saw the clapping crowds on the shorelines. He saw the joyful messages on their networks. They were calling the weapon discharge fireworks. They were rating its color and intensity. One of their arts committees gave it 7 out of 10. They noted a lack of a secondary explosion. He sent his first report to the fleet commander. It was short and confusing. "Commander," it read, "the primitives are reacting abnormally. They appear to interpret our warning shot as a celebration. They are congregating in open spaces. They seem to be enjoying the siege." He checked the data again. It did not make any sense. The commander's reply was swift. "Observer Xylos, check your sensors. The primitives may be using a psychological weapon. Their broadcasts could be a deception." Xylos obeyed. He ran every diagnostic he knew. The sensors were perfect. The data was accurate. The small, soft creatures below were simply insane. He wrote his next report with a heavy feeling. This conquest was not going by the book. We decided our guests needed some entertainment. The silence from their ships felt impolite. So we prepared a gift of music. We gathered our greatest recordings. We collected songs from every culture. We wanted to share the sound of our world. We aimed our largest broadcast arrays at their fleet. The first song we sent was a piece of old classical music, a symphony of soaring strings and powerful drums. It spoke of struggle and eventual triumph. We followed it with folk songs, simple melodies about life, love, and the land. We sent them songs of joy and songs of sorrow. We sent them music for dancing. We even sent them lullabies for sleeping. With each piece, we included a short introduction. We explained what the music meant to us. We described the stories behind the songs. "This next one is about a great love," we would broadcast. "We hope you have someone to share it with." Or, "This song helps us when we feel sad. Maybe it can help you too." We turned our planet into a massive radio station. Our only goal was to entertain the silent fleet. We imagined them listening on their bridge. We hoped they would tap their strange alien feet. We did not ask for anything in return. We just wanted them to feel welcome. It was the polite thing to do. Music, after all, is a universal hello. After music, we thought of food. A good host always offers their guests a meal. We did not know what they ate, but we had plenty of options to offer. Our greatest chefs collaborated on a menu. It was the most ambitious culinary project in history. We wanted to prepare a feast for the invaders. We loaded our oldest cargo ships. They were slow and completely unarmed. We filled their holds with containers. Each container was a carefully prepared sample. We sent them bread from 1,000 traditions. We sent them fruits from every climate. We sent them complex dishes that took days to cook. We even sent them our best chocolate. We assumed everyone liked chocolate. Our little ships lumbered up into the sky. They moved slowly toward the massive warships. It was a parade of metal lunchboxes. They approached the fleet and stopped. They waited at a respectful distance. We broadcast another message. "Welcome to our home," it said. "We have prepared some refreshments for you. Please accept these gifts. There is more if you are still hungry." We did not know if they would accept. We did not know if they could even eat our food. But it was the gesture that mattered. It was a hand reaching out, a hand holding a plate, not a weapon. We watched and waited. We hoped they were having a good time. We were trying our best to be good hosts. The commander of the HFY stared at the tactical display. The small, primitive ships held their position. They broadcasted lists of ingredients. The commander's headache was now a constant pressure. He had conquered 17 worlds for the Empire. This was the first to offer him dessert. His analysts worked in frantic silence. They scanned the cargo ships for explosives. They found only complex carbohydrates. They analyzed the music transmissions for hidden code. They found only heartfelt lyrics about rain. They studied the images of the cheering crowds. They could find no sign of a coordinated trick. Everything was exactly what it seemed. Baffling, infuriating kindness. "They are offering us recipes," one analyst said softly. "This one is for a baked good called a scone." The commander closed his eyes. The HFY Empire was built on logic, on predictable outcomes. You show force, the enemy feels fear. You apply pressure, the enemy breaks. It was a simple, brutal equation. These beings did not fit the equation. "Ignore the gifts," the commander ordered, "and their music. Begin the next phase. Deploy the war forms. Let them see the face of HFY power. That will stop their singing." He felt a sliver of hope. Fear was the universal constant. Surely these creatures must understand fear. They just needed a more personal demonstration. So they sent down the drones. We called them the Parade of Steel Giants. They were enormous machines. They stood 50 feet tall on metal legs. They had glowing red eyes and cannons for arms. They landed in our major cities. They strode through our streets. Their footsteps shook the ground. They were designed to inspire absolute terror. We were thrilled. We had never had such exciting parade floats. We ran out to greet them. We waved flags and threw confetti. The drones stopped, their programming confused. They were designed for urban warfare. They had no protocols for a welcoming party. They simply stood there, menacing and silent. So we started decorating them. Children climbed their giant legs. They tied ribbons and balloons to their armor. Artists brought out ladders and paint. They began painting beautiful murals on the drone's flat surfaces. They painted flowers and mountains and smiling faces. The war machines became canvases for public art. The drones did not react. They stood perfectly still as we covered them. They were monuments of intimidation. We turned them into colorful, friendly statues. We took pictures with them. We gave them funny nicknames. One city named their drone Stompy. Stompy quickly became a beloved local landmark. We loved our new steel giants. With the parade in full swing, it was time for games. Every good festival needs competitions. We announced the first ever Galactic Welcome Games. The events were held all over the world. We invited everyone to participate. It was a global celebration in honor of our guests. The competitions were varied. We had athletic events like running and swimming. We had artistic contests for painting and poetry. We even had a planet-wide bake-off. The theme for all entries was making new friends. The energy was incredible. We were not celebrating survival. We were celebrating our visitors. The grand prize for each event was special. It was the honor of sending a personal message to the fleet. The winner would get to use our global broadcast array. They could say whatever they wanted to the K-Thar. It was the greatest prize we could imagine. A chance to speak directly to our new neighbors. The winners were chosen. A marathon runner from a mountain village. A young poet who wrote about the stars. An elderly baker famous for her pies. Each of them prepared their message. They were not messages of defiance. They were not pleas for mercy. They were messages of genuine, hopeful greeting. Our festival games were a huge success. On the bridge of the K-Thar warship, discipline was failing. The crew watched the planet's broadcasts. They had been trained for brutal combat. They had prepared for a storm of resistance. Instead, they saw singing children. They saw people painting their most feared war machines. They saw a planet united in cheerful absurdity. Whispers spread through the ship's corridors. "Did you see them?" one pilot asked another. "They put a giant hat on Warform 7. Another technician stared at his screen. It showed the winner of the baking contest. She was a small, smiling old woman. She was holding up a pie. Her message was about to be broadcast across the system. The observer, Xylos, logged it all. The crew's morale was dropping. Their confusion was turning into something else. Some looked almost wistful. They watched the primitives play their games. They listened to their strange, happy music. They had been taught these creatures were savages, but the savages were having much more fun. The commander saw the change in his crew. Their sharp military focus was softening. They were questioning the mission. "Why are we here?" an ensign asked his superior. "What threat do they pose?" The question was dangerous. An empire built on conquest cannot afford doubt. The commander knew he was losing control, not of the planet, but of his own ship. The time came for the final message. The winner was a little girl. She had won a children's songwriting contest. She was only 6 years old. She stood in front of a global microphone. She was not afraid. She held a small, hand-drawn picture. It showed a stick figure person holding hands with a big, blocky alien. She didn't give a speech. She didn't read a poem. She just began to sing. Her voice was small and clear. The song was simple. It had only a few words. "Are you happy in the sky? Do you want to come and play?" She sang it over and over. A simple, unfiltered question from a child. The song went out into the void. It traveled from our broadcast array to their silent ships. It was not a plea. It was not a trick. It was a pure and honest invitation. The little girl finished her song. She held her drawing up to the camera. "This is for you," she said. Then the broadcast ended. The silence that followed was different. The whole planet seemed to be listening. We had sent them our symphonies. We had sent them our art. But this felt like our real message. A simple tune from a small child. It was the sound of our defenseless, unbreakable hope. We had done all we could. The next move was theirs. The song echoed on the K-Thar bridge. For a long time, no one spoke. The little girl's voice filled the cold, metal room. The commander stared at the face on the screen. He saw no fear in her eyes, only curiosity. His entire career, his whole civilization, was based on the power of fear. And this tiny child had none. His tactical officer turned to him. "Commander, what are your orders?" The commander did not answer. He was listening to the simple melody. "Do you want to come and play?" The question was a weapon he had never encountered. How do you fight an invitation? How do you conquer a people who refuse to be your enemy? Then, their ship responded. For the first time, they sent a signal that wasn't a threat. It wasn't a demand. It was a single, sustained note. It was a sound we had never heard before. It was a complex and alien tone, but the emotion it carried was universal. It was a note of pure, profound confusion, and beneath it, a hint of something else, a deep and ancient sorrow. The note washed over our planet. Our instruments analyzed it. But we didn't need star science to understand it. We felt it. It was the sound of a question, the sound of a deeply held belief shattering. It was the most honest communication we had received from them. A single note that said everything. They did not understand us at all. We had one last thing to show them, our grand finale. The party was almost over. We had to end with something they would remember. In response to their long, sad note, we offered light. We coordinated a planet-wide event. For 1 hour, we would all work together. We would create the largest piece of art in history. At the designated time, we turned on our lights. Cities lit up in planned patterns. Cars on highways flashed their headlights in sequence. People in dark fields held up lanterns. We used every source of light we had. We worked together as a single organism. From their ships in orbit, the pattern would be clear. Across the dark face of our planet, we drew a picture. It was a simple shape. 2 dots for eyes, a gentle curve for a mouth. We drew a giant, smiling face. It was a smile that stretched across continents, a message of simple, unwavering friendliness. It was our final answer to their siege, our final gift to our lonely guests. We smiled at the strangers in our sky. We wanted them to know we were happy they came. We hoped they liked our festival. The face of our world shone with light and warmth. It was the only weapon we had, and we aimed it directly at their hearts. We watched the smiling face of our planet. The light show was a stunning success. Then we watched the sky. The great dark ships began to move. They did not fire their weapons. They did not send another message. They simply turned. One by one, the vast, silent mountains of stone pivoted. They faced away from us, toward the deep, empty dark. With the same silence they had arrived with, they departed. Their engines left no trace. They accelerated to impossible speeds. In a moment, they were gone. The stars they had hidden for a week reappeared. Our sun rose again on cities and fields. The shadow was lifted. The sky was ours once more. We were left in the quiet aftermath. The party decorations were still up. The painted war drones stood silently in our city squares. The echo of the girls' songs still felt near. They were gone, just like that. They came. They saw. And they left. We still wonder about it. Did we do something wrong? Did they not like the music? Was the food not to their taste? We tried so hard to be good hosts. We greeted them with open arms. We showed them the best of who we are. And they left without even saying goodbye. It was terribly rude. We just hope that wherever they went, they are not so lonely anymore. We miss our strange, quiet friends.